Welcome to Looking at Lucasfilm, the podcast with a different perspective on the world of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and all of the other entities that George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, and the rest of the team at Lucasfilm have dreamed up over the past 40 years. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co host, the one and only Dan Z, and I are recording this on Wednesday, October 28th. Dan, we are 2 days out from the start of season 2 of The Mandalorian. It debuts on Disney Plus on October 3rd. And I have to ask, given your ties to Lucasfilm, have we seen anything early?
I have not seen anything early yet, but I have been eagerly anticipating that moment when and if that happens. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, I have nothing to report on that front. But wow, just a few days away. I don't know about you, but I showed season 1 to my wife and Mason 2 weeks ago, and they had never seen it, so it was very fun to revisit it, to kind of see it through their eyes for
Oh.
their first time,
Hmm.
but also to revisit it for me because I hadn't seen them since they originally aired. So it reminded me how wonderful this show is.
Oh, okay. Now I have to admit I've been voyeuristically enjoying your escapades on Twitter. You you kind of went crazy on Mando Monday, right? That
Yes.
now did I hear right? You actually managed to score all of the classic collection figures.
Yeah, the retro figures. There's a website I like called Big Bad Toy Store that seems to be always have the greatest stuff right away, but I don't think
Mm.
people hit them as soon as they do the other websites, or maybe they do and I just get lucky. But they actually had you could get an entire case of all 7 of the
Mhm.
retro figures. So I waited until 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time when it was live, and I hit refresh. It was boom, add to cart, and off we go to the races. So yeah, I was very excited about that.
Oh,
I mean, they look
oh.
exactly like the ones when we were growing up. I mean, I saw that Carl Weathers was
Mhm.
absolutely enraptured by his Grief
Mhm.
Karga retro figure. So that's great. I mean, that just hits the sweet spot for all of us that grew up with the original Star Wars Kenner figures.
No, and you're right. I love how they're carded. I love the graphics. Again, it's for those of us who go way, way back, it was just fun to see what they did. I will say this much: I have to say, I had more fun watching the members of the cast, just get jazzed at the merch.
Yes.
Whether it was their face on a T-shirt or or as you mentioned, Carl Weathers with his own action figure. But in a weird sort of way, it kind of took away from me. I mean, remember this time last year there was nothing from the Mandalorian. Just sort of, it was just sort of this mysterious thing that was coming over the horizon. We'd seen the trailers, we, but there were no toys to give anything away. And this time around, there's so much merch.
They have Baby Yoda Christmas pajamas for adults right now. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Drew Taylor and I got a matching pair. We're going to get the Christmas card ready. We'll send it out to you soon.
Oh, that'll be great. I will say this much: I did the Funko Pop figures, particularly of the Mandalorian with the jetpack, and I think there's one jetpack where he's actually carrying Baby Yoda, the child. Those are
Mm,
certainly tempting, and I also
yes,
the dark saber, kind of cool looking.
extremely.
Um, but I have to tell you, folks, this week when it came to spending my hard-earned cash, I had another item in mind, and that was picking up my copy of the Star Wars book, which Dan, I have to tell you, was honestly a surprise. I don't know honestly, what I was expecting, but this is a legitimate reference book.
Yes.
And Star Wars 101, if you would. And what's kind of interesting is that it's the book you would give to somebody who has just, sort of somehow discovered, the Star Wars franchise and wants to learn more. Or for that matter, for someone like myself who thinks he knows a lot about the Star Wars universe. There's stuff in here I never knew before. And more to the point, great reference things like, for example, laying out the entire Star Wars galaxy. So, you understand where exactly planets are out on the outer rim
You
and that
can get
sort of thing.
lost in that map. That thing is
No,
amazing.
Absolutely. I must have spent 15, 20 minutes of, okay, Dantooine, so Tatooine is there, that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about how this book came together? Because again, what's crazy about this book is how right up to the minute it is. I mean, for example, I'm paging through this thing at there's the High Republic, which, yeah, if COVID hadn't screwed up the timeline, we'd have a few things out there. But this is really, in a lot of ways, people's first, introduction to the High Republic. Likewise, surprising amount of stuff about the Mandalorian. When can you talk about when you and Pablo and Cole were sitting down? Uh, how you tackled this?
Yeah, January,
Mm,
middle of January, I was contacted by DK and
mhm,
asked to be a part of this project and be a part of this book, and so of course I said yes right away. And
mhm,
then we were assigned the different sections
mhm,
and portions of the book that they wanted us to attack and to approach. And
mhm,
so we had, I think I probably had about 6, 7 weeks to write my sections. And then it goes through a round of edits, and you get it back and tweak different things,
mhm.
and then you just refresh Amazon every second for weeks and weeks, and then finally it pops up on there, and then you're off to the races promoting it and getting excited for it. It was
Well,
quite a. I'm so intrigued by the process itself, especially as a teacher, so I can explain to students what it's like
mhm.
to write a book. So that was pretty rewarding for me, and not to mention the fact that it's really blowing my mind that this franchise, this story that I've loved since I was 5 years old, now I'm actually contributing to the lore, and it blows my mind to say that out loud.
No, but I'm quite serious about the fact that this seriously, if folks are out there with kids who are interested in Star Wars, this is, we're sort of like, it's it's not pocket size. It's an 8 by 10, I want to say,
That sounds
maybe
right. Yeah,
hardcover.
yeah, it's a unique
Yeah,
size, but it's
but
it's
it's
like a textbook. I really feel like it's a Star Wars textbook that
no,
explains everything,
absolutely.
whether you're brand new
That
or your experience, like you said.
Yeah, and I just it does it's so beautifully organized. I mean, it's an easy read, more to the point. I again, I'm learning things about the franchise I never learned or never knew before. But again, that's largely because of the way things are grouped in it. Can, can you talk about what did you get? When they reached out to you, what were you? What which parts of the book were you handed or assigned?
Sure. I feel like we were all sort of assigned things that were in our wheelhouse, that were in our strengths. I
Hmm.
focused on a lot of character stuff. I did a lot of stuff with the Force and the Jedi,
Hmm.
and being able to focus on the Skywalkers a lot was an incredible honor. And
Hmm.
there's just like little various places throughout that I contributed, and I also got to. I haven't talked about this yet, but I got to do a third of the glossary, which thrilled me to no end. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I loved writing the vocabulary. I thought that was great fun.
Spoken like a true teacher. All
Yes.
right. Well, no. Again, I'm just tickled by the finished product, and more to the point. And again, there's a part of me that feels sorry because if we weren't dealing with COVID, you would have gone out and done a real for real book tour for this thing. But it's
Hmm.
been fun watching the newspaper stories and the local television station and that sort of thing. What has that been like at your end? I mean, especially what with balancing teaching assignments and all that.
Right. Well, we had a book signing at a local coffee shop where I wrote about 60% of the book. And you
Mhm.
probably saw pictures of that. And that was extremely special to me because Mason sat at my right hand side,
I
and
saw that
oh, it was
picture.
adorable.
Yeah.
He even
Yeah.
signed a couple of books. People wanted him to sign because people know about him through Facebook Live and just through the show. And
Mhm.
he is still talking about that. The school where he went, the principal came and bought a book for the library that they had Mason and I sign. So he was pretty honored by that, which was really special. But it's been
Oh.
pretty constant. I've been doing. I think I've got 8 different interviews that I've had where I've been
Mhm.
interviewed. I just had a blockbuster episode where I had myself, Cole Horton, and Pablo on,
Mhm.
along with our editor Matt Jones. So that's the only podcast that's going to have all four of us on it. and that's going to air very soon. So that was incredibly fun. And then, of course, I get to talk about it with you, and I've got another TV piece that's coming out tomorrow morning, and we're doing more book signings and a lot of really exciting stuff are going on. I mean, if COVID had not happened, it'd be even more um, worldly of a tour. But this is pretty great, and just because I'm getting to share it, and you probably saw when I went to school the day the book came out, my wife had and some of the other teachers that decorated my classroom. They brought in donuts for the students and Star Wars cookies that students had made. They had streamers everywhere of the Mandalorian, and it was pretty spectacular. I mean, you know what it's like to write a book and put it out there in the world, and it was very special, very exciting. It's just nice to see the love and support, and I really believe that when these things happen, you can see who supports you and who is not really interested in doing that, and I think that is sort of useful too.
Well, all right. The important thing to stress here is, face it, Star Wars is an ongoing thing. So there are going to have to be updates. There are going to have to be, expanded editions of the Star Wars book. And hopefully by then, COVID will be, a not very fond memory. So hopefully you'll actually get to do your really for real book tour at that point.
Yeah, I
But
think so.
but no. Again, Dan, I am just sort of weirdly proud of you because of this book. It's just,
That's not
and
weird. I appreciate that.
but trust me, especially working on this podcast, I'm going to be referencing this thing a lot. I'll still pronounce the names wrong. I'm just saying.
We
But
don't have we don't have any phonetic spellings. They didn't listen to my request, I guess.
well, there we go.
And I
All
do
right.
think it's going to produce a lot of conversation starters. I think it's going to end a lot of conversations, and I think it's going to fuel a lot of fire in a positive way. In fact, during the signing, I had the great privilege of looking over, and there were a couple of friends of mine that were discussing the book, and they were open to a page that I happened to write, and they were debating it and trying to figure it out. And I walked over there with this weird sense of excitement and pride, and I said, "Are you guys not sure about? Are you debating this?" Like, yeah. And I go, "It's too bad the author isn't there to talk about it with you." And they just looked at me like, "Oh, duh! Why aren't we doing this?" So we had this great conversation about Rey and Kylo Ren that was great fun, and those are the kind of things I love.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. Well, again, I'm sure that this is the start of a lot of great stories associated with the Star Wars book. So seriously, folks, kudos to you, Pablo and Cole. But honestly, folks, if you're a Star Wars fan on your holiday shopping list, this is the book to get. And I say that with that $200 prequel book lurking out there, which I'm still still kicking the tires on. My problem is it's a coffee table book you could make a coffee table out of.
That's right. Well, I appreciate the kind words and the good vibes on the book. Thank you.
Yeah, least I could do. All right. Well, speaking of someone who's kind and deserved lots of good vibes, did you see what Josh Gad did this past week?
Yes, I'm so glad that you're talking about this. I mean, what a perfect thing. He needs to come on and talk with us about it.
Getting that the problem is the poor man has two more. Well, all right, I should explain what we're talking about here. Earlier this week, Josh Gad put a thing on Instagram to the effect of he wanted 10,000 retweets of a very simple message. That's something to get out the vote. Obviously we have the presidential election coming up next week, and so what Josh did, offered as an incentive if we could reach that milestone, if we could get 10,000 retweets, he would recap the entire Star Wars franchise as Olaf the Snowman from Frozen. And the thing is, he put this request out on the 27th, and wasn't it actually on the 27th he got all 10,000 retweets?
I believe that's right. Yes.
Yeah, and so I think he actually started off the Instagram message he put up after that to the effect of I may have lowballed. I should have gone with a higher number. But what he's done, he's decided, okay, because it's a big story. It's this saga, and so he started with the prequels, and it's 7 minutes and 55 seconds of just comedy gold. Just like, for example, it's a fresh and funny take. I mean, with things like, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan retreats to the desert to await his own series on Disney Plus. It just it's such a great thing. But yeah, let me reach out to Josh and see, because he's got to do the original trilogy, and then of course the stories involving Ray. But yeah, let's see if we can get him on to talk about, how do you take that much story and, and first of all winnow it down, and then figure out how Olaf would tell this story. So
Pretty
let's
cool,
see.
pretty special that he did that.
I agree. I agree. And let's see. Speaking of pretty special things, a few shows back, Dan and I talked about Red Tails, George Lucas's amazing film about the Tuskegee Airmen. Amazing movie, folks. Well worth watching these days. Um, and George thought that there was a lot of story to tell here. His original plan was in the Star Wars style to do a film trilogy. Film one would have involved the recruitment and the training of these military the members of this military aviation unit that was made up entirely of black pilots. And in fact, what's weird little bend on the story, Dan. Eleanor Roosevelt was a huge champion of the Tuskegee Airmen. When the Pentagon was grousing, she kind of plowed the road. Anyway, film two would have dealt with the airmen's exploits in World War II. And then finally, film three was supposed to have dealt with what happened with the Tuskegee Airmen after the war ended, where many of these pilots returned to the States and then began to battle another foe, segregation. Anyway, better part of a decade, George pitches this project, but he couldn't find a studio in Hollywood that was willing to fund production of the film trilogy. So in the end, he just made the one movie, Red Tails, which was released to theaters back in January of 2012. But all of the research that George did for that proposed film trilogy hasn't gone to waste. Did you see what Lucasfilm is launching an educational initiative that celebrates the Tuskegee Airmen?
Isn't it wonderfully serendipitous that that is happening just a few short weeks after we happen to bring up this incredible film and story? And
I
I applaud the fact that they're doing this in their
Mhm.
I mean it's I think it's important. There's some pretty powerful voices behind this thing too.
No, absolutely. By the way, folks, the name of this whole effort keys off of a documentary, Double Victory: The Tuskegee Airmen at War, which, by the way, is now permanently available at Lucasfilm.com. And you, as a teacher, will appreciate that, Stan. The documentary is supplemented by an educational curriculum guide for grades 6 through 12. And to help raise awareness of both Double Victory and Red Tails, a social media campaign is built around the hashtag Fly Like Them, was just launched to raise awareness of the Tuskegee Airmen. So, I again, you're right. I'm especially thrilled that this is happening right after you and I talked about this. By the way, folks, Dan and I will be taking a closer look at the actual development and production of Red Tails, which began way back in the 1980s. We'll share that story on our next Looking at Lucasfilm, which, appropriately enough, should be posted on or about November 11th, Veterans Day. Let's see what else. What else? And just a few days after that, on November 17th, we have the Legos Star Wars Holiday Special. Have you seen any of the interviews that are out there about this, Dan? Or
No, I haven't.
James Waugh, the gentleman who's been working on this thing, he's right up front. He's warning Star Wars fans who are sticklers for continuity that they're not going to like this show. That he's warned that the holiday special is going to have a lot of characters from across all timelines crashing together, but in a way that's charming and fun. Wall went on to say, what we really wanted to do was create a piece of entertainment that could be watched every year. Evidently, this animated holiday special directly follows the events of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And so the Resistance heroes are preparing to celebrate Life Day on Kashti. Am I getting that right?
What's the spelling of it?
That's Kassh. It's the Wookiee
Oh,
the Wookiee planet.
Kashyyyk. Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk. Damn.
Yes.
Okay, Kashyyyk. And Rey, while she's there, Rey journeys to a mysterious Jedi temple where she was hurled across timelines through beloved moments in Star Wars history. So she interacts with a young Luke, a young Kylo Ren. She even winds up battling Darth Vader. And now Walk goes on to say, this is not the Lego remake of the holiday special in any way. We're not doing Lego B. Arthur singing in Cantina. So we're supposed to think more along the lines of a cosmic Christmas carol, where, for example, you get to see, Obi-Wan Kenobis from 3 different eras, and two types of Han Solo, one old and cranky, and one young and just a little cranky. Speaking of Obi-Wan, did you see the news about the pre-production work that they were doing on the Obi-Wan limited series?
Yeah, it looks like things are going promisingly well.
Yeah, well, what's kind of intriguing is how far back they have been doing test work on this thing. Ewan McGregor appeared on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. Love that title, by the way. And he talked about how they actually went on the set of The Mandalorian and used the volume of that space to do some costume tests for the Obi-Wan limited series. In fact, he went on set with Deborah Chow, who, of course, directed, one or two of the better episodes of The Mandalorian season 1. And, and she's going to be the show director on the Obi-Wan limited series. And in talking about this soon-to-be shooting project, McGregor went on to say, it's been a long time coming. I mean, we've been talking about doing this Lucasfilm and Disney, I don't know, for 4 or 5, maybe more years, and it's just taken a while for it to come to fruition. Excited at the fact that it's a series opposed to a movie because it gives us more space. But I think you and I talked about that previously. That what's exciting about so many of these projects heading over to Disney Plus is, that the narratives are actually going to have some breathing space. That they're not jumping from action scene to action scene to action scene.
Right.
Though something that's sure to have a lot of action scenes is Star Wars Tales from Galaxy's Edge, the game from Oculus Quest. And what did you see the trailer that dropped for this?
Yeah, not only does the footage look like you're actually walking along Batuu, but it also has Frank Oz in it as the voice of Yoda.
Yes. I mean, we already had Anthony Daniels coming back to do C-3PO, but this is really the icing on the cake. Now, the folks who made the game want to caution folks that Yoda, I guess, is featured in. There's a short story they tell within the game. In fact, what is it? The Slack, the character that Bobby Monahan,
Yes,
the cantina owner, he voices in it. In fact, I guess as part of the trailer, they have him say, "Let me tell you the story of a mysterious Jedi temple right here in Batuu." But that's again the thing that Oculus Quest wants to warn people about is Frank's portion of this is basically a never before told short tale. So don't expect that you're going to be fighting side by side. Don't get me wrong. The trailer also revealed that you get to wield a lightsaber, as part of this game, which looks very cool. But you're not going to get the chance to wield a lightsaber with Yoda throughout this entire game. So set your expectations appropriately, folks. But
right.
But on the other hand, Frank Oz coming back to do Yoda.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, it all ties into experiences that have been in place at Galaxy's Edge since that part of the park on both coasts opened. So it does fit into the lore of what's already there. You just have to kind of look for it.
I agree. I agree. And speaking of things that are coming back, what did you make of this Willow sequel series announcement?
I think I may have to watch Willow again. As we said a few weeks ago, I've only seen it once. Now is when it was in the theaters, so I know a
Mhm.
lot of people are very excited about it. I don't know if it's a little too deep into the woods for people, but I guess we'll find out very soon, won't we?
Well, what's interesting is if you talk with the folks at Lucasfilm, and remember on the previous show, we were talking about how because of we are 3 years out at this point, more than 3 years out from the next Star Wars theatrical release in 2023. And again, you and I both know that's only that's a placeholder because everyone's concerned about COVID still, and the will these large films actually move forward. But so largely, Star Wars as a franchise is going to live and breathe and grow on Disney Plus for the next few years. I mean, obviously, we've got The Mandalorian season 2 starting later this week, the Obi-Wan series we just talked about, Star Wars: The Bad Batch. By the way, confirmed with folks over at Lucas Animation, this is still going to make it to 2021, and they're very, very, very excited about it. But yeah, Disney and Lucas saw this as an opportunity, this particular film, Willow, uh, as an opportunity to do their first non-Star Wars thing for Disney Plus. And they persuaded quite a few folks. I mean, for example, Ron Howard, the original director, he's back as an executive producer on this limited series. Warwick Davis, which we all know and love from the Star Wars films. He's back to play Willow Offgood. And what's genuinely interesting about this is who they tapped as the guy who's directing the pilot as well as executive producing, and that's John Chu, the director of Rich Crazy Asians and In the Heights, the Lin Manuel Miranda musical, the film musical that's been shot and is sitting in the can waiting to for theaters to reopen. But John, in talking about the series, uh, he's well, Dan. First of all, he is a truly dedicated Willow fan. He actually named his daughter Willow. So
That's hardcore.
yeah, hardcore. But he talks about growing up in the '80s. Willow had a profound effect on me. The story of the bravest heroes in the least likely places allowed me, an Asian American kid growing up in a Chinese restaurant looking to go to Hollywood, to believe in the power of our own will, determination, of course, inner magic. And the fact that I get to work with my heroes from Kathleen Kennedy to Ron Howard is a dream come is bigger than a dream come true. It's a bucket list moment for me. And again, I knowing your love for Solo, Jonathan Kasdan is a showrunner on this thing.
That's great. I
So
mean,
yeah,
he's good at plot and character development, and I'd like to see him get involved with some more things anyway too. So this is good news.
no, I agree, and for me personally, I wonder if they're going to bring back the two-headed dragon creature, the Sispert.
Yeah,
You know the story behind that one, right? The
I
that
don't
it's
I don't know if I do.
um, George evidently it's called the Siskbert because of uh,
Siskel and Ebert.
Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert,
Wow.
from At the Movies,
Yeah.
that this was George's way, evidently, of I guess they had been a touch unkind to one of the films he'd made recently, and so the Sispert was this ugly beast that rose up out of the the moat and attacked poor Willow. So
You know, when I worked at Hollywood Studios, I sold a Mickey Mouse watch to Gene Siskel.
did you really?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it was cool.
Oh,
He was nice,
okay.
very tall.
No, I've heard that. I've heard nice things about both he and Roger. By the way, speaking of creatures from Lucasfilm Productions, I dug up a Halloween appropriate tale about a Star Wars skeleton that has a kind of a wild tie to a Walt Disney film, and we'll get to that in a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Marquetta. When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/Spotify to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 is the ultimate all-out warfare experience. Rip through the skies in aerial dogfights. Demolish your surroundings for a strategic advantage. Harness complete control over every action and movement using the kinesthetic combat system. Drop into multiplayer with your squad, or fight furiously as a member of the Dagger 1-3 squad in a gritty, adrenaline-fueled single-player campaign where you'll defend a world on the edge of collapse.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Okay. You all know the scene. It's 10 minutes into Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. R2-D2 and C-3PO's escape pod has crash landed on Tatooine, and the two droids find themselves out in the middle of the Great Dune Sea. R2-D2 wants to go one way, C-3PO wants to go another. They fight and split up. And so next scene, we see C-3PO. He's tired, he's hot. He's struggling to get up over a ridge, and behind him are the bleached bones of some immense dinosaur-like creature. And 3PO says something to the effect of, "That malfunctioning little twerp, this is all his fault. He tricked me into going this way, but he'll do no better." Now, Dan, according to Star Wars mythology, the bones behind C-3PO are those of a crate dragon. Have I got that right?
You got it right.
K-R-Y?
You pronounce it right.
Okay.
It's the right. Yep, that's it.
Okay, so, and as I understand it, these are large carnivorous beasts that wander the deserts of Tatooine, and they're supposedly so fearsome that even Tusken Raiders are afraid of them.
That's right.
On the other hand, if you actually talk to the folks who journeyed to Tunisia in March of 1976 to the edge of the Sahara Desert to shoot these scenes in Episode 4, The New Hope, they'd have told you an entirely different story, that those bones are not a crate dragon, but rather they are the skeleton of a Diplodocus, a sauropod from the late Jurassic period. And how do these guys know that, Dan? Because they were part of the team who first hauled those faux dinosaur bones out of storage at Pinewood Studios, loaded them to storage containers, and then had these oversized props shipped to North Africa, where after the Star Wars production team spent 3 weeks with bulldozers grooming the dunes in a way so they would look otherworldly, the neck and spine of this Diplodocus was then carefully positioned on the sand. Now, mind you, Disney fans might actually recognize this sauropod skeleton. It was created for One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, which is a British-American comedy film that Disney made, set in the early 1920s. It involved the theft of a dinosaur skeleton out of the Natural History Museum in London. I'm sorry, you can't see One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing on Disney Plus, not yet anyway. That's largely because even though this movie was directed by Robert Stevenson and Bill Walsh, the same team that brought us Mary Poppins, The Love Bug, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks, One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing is thought to be racially insensitive these days, largely because of the comic role that Peter Ustinov plays in the movie, which is a Chinese warlord. So it's, and he's heavily made up, and
That's a problem.
Interesting though for Star Wars fan, in One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, Peter Ustinov's Chinese warlord character has an assistant, Quan. He's played by British character actor Clive Revell, who I don't need to tell you, Dan, was the voice of the Emperor in the original 1980 version of Empire Strikes Back.
That's right.
Anyway, back to One of Our Dinosaurs Missing. That was shot in the UK in the summer of July of 1974. Released to theaters the following July. And the sets and props, once the film was completed, were struck, packed up, and put in storage. So, okay, we jump ahead now. Late fall, early winter of 1975, when pre-production of Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, is gearing up. And as someone shows the crew at Elstree Studios, Ralph McQuarrie's concept paintings of C-3PO wandering in the desert with the skeleton, some vast beast draped over a dune behind him. And a member of the crew who had actually worked on One of Our Dinosaurs Is Missing a year and a half earlier says, I know where we can get one of those. But here's the thing, Deb. After 2.5 weeks of filming in Tunisia, production of Episode 4, A New Hope, moves to Elstree near London. But that Diplodocus skeleton, because it was so heavy, and it would have cost a fortune to extract out of the dune, pack up, and then ship back to the UK, is left behind. Right where, right there, draped over the dune, and wind and sand eventually bury the skeleton. Which I know sounds strange, but Hollywood has a history of this. Have you ever heard of the lost city of DeMille?
No.
Okay. 1923, Cecil B. DeMille builds the largest set in movie history in the dunes near Guadalupe, California, for his silent version of the Ten Commandments. It was the City of the Pharaohs. And when filming was complete, because DeMille didn't want another film, another studio or another film company coming in and using the set that he built, he ordered the entire set be dismantled and then secretly buried in the dunes. And so it laid there for 60 years until a bunch of film buffs in 1983, that DeMille had referred to this in his biography, which had been, or autobiography that had been published posthumously. And they went out to the desert and they hunted for weeks and weeks, but finally found. And the thing is that they're uncovering these faux Egyptian artifacts. They're beautifully detailed, but they're made out of plaster and wood, but they're perfectly preserved under the snow dirt or the sand dunes. Anyway, speaking of film buffs, visiting the locations of the Star Wars movies, where they were shot, became kind of a thing in the 80s and 90s. And in 1995, archaeologist and filmmaker David West Reynolds journeyed to the Tunisian desert with the hope of finding that skeleton, which he had heard they had left behind. And so it took a lot of digging, but eventually Dave found just the right dune, and sure enough, he uncovered that oversized skeleton, which had been repurposed from Disney's One of Our Dinosaurs Is Missing. And what's fun about this is this story eventually gets back to George Lucas, who, and we now jump ahead to July of 1997, when Lucas has returned to the Tunisian desert to shoot the scenes for Phantom Menace that are set on Tatooine. And so they had built the city of Mos Espa. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Mos Espa.
Okay, so that's the city where Anakin Skywalker and his mom Shmi lived.
Yeah. Shmi.
Anyway, it's built outside of the city of Tozir. And on the night of the on the night following the third day of filming in Tozir, an unexpected sandstorm sweeps up and destroys many of the sets and a lot of the props to film. So George shows up the next morning and is told it's going to take a couple of days to rebuild the sets and the props, and and someone turns to George and said, well, what do you want to do in the meantime? And he supposedly stroked his beard for a moment and said, let's go see if we can find that dinosaur skeleton. And I'm told that George took a portion of the crew, and it took them the better part of the day, but they were driving around, and eventually George kind of recognized the dune. And, they all got out and they did a little digging, and they found that, sure enough, they dug down and they found the dinosaur skeleton, which had been, once again, recovered by sand and the wind. And then George proceeded to tell them the stories of, of being, the 3 weeks that he had people out in the desert, with bulldozers shaping this so it looked like Tatooine. And Dan, to this day, that skeleton is still out there in the desert of Tunisia. A few of the smaller vertebrae, which by the way, even the small pieces weighed upwards of 100 pounds, have been carted away by dedicated Star Wars fan, but the others are still there, just like the lost city of Demille. So,
Isn't that
um,
wonderful? That's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just, but again, I love the Disney tie there. And by the way, that there's a little tiny sub story here where that there are there are Star Wars fans who are also fans of the series Space 1999, which also, by the way, was shot at Pinewood, and about this same time. And there's an episode of the second season of that show where there are skeletons shown, dinosaur skeletons on I think it's called the Rules of Luton. And that there were fans like, wait a minute, that's the same skeleton from from A New Hope. And it's like, well, no, it's not. Because the Disney actually built several versions of this Diplodocus skeleton, and there was one, for example, that was rigged so they could roll around in the back of a truck. I mean, that's half of the comedy scenes of this movie are English nannies driving a lorry through the foggy streets of London with a giant Diplodocus skeleton in the back of the truck. But yeah, it's the same skeleton, but the duplicate that was made to be put on top of the truck. But yeah, it's featured in this prop from this Disney film is featured in two sci-fi favorites from the 70s, the original Star Wars: A New Hope and Space 1999. So anyway, all right, it's skeletons. It's kind of Halloweeny, kind of. I Speaking of Halloween, and we were talking earlier about Mason, Dan. This is kind of a challenging Halloween, isn't it?
It is. Obviously, they're not doing traditional trick or treating the way that it normally is. So we're kind of doing some fun stuff at our house. We're gonna decorate our basement, make it sort of like a little haunted mansion area, and then have him do some trick or treating, with his grandparents. But then we're going to just pretend like our house is a neighborhood. We've got lots of doors and lots of rooms, so every door is going to be a new house, and he's going to go trick or treating throughout the house, and he's very excited about it.
That's a clever solution. I like that idea. Wow. Okay. Big thumbs up there. All right. Now you had already just talked about your big episode with Cole and Pablo and the editor of the Star Wars book, but can you talk about what else you're up to over with Coffee with Kenobi?
Yeah, we on our Patreon page, we just did a show on things that scare us for Halloween. We're doing a top 5 movie monsters, which is going to be great fun. I interviewed Kyle Newman, the director of Fanboys, who's a big Star Wars fan, and he did a Dungeons and Dragons cookbook with Matthew Whitwer, who's the brother of Sam Whitwer, the voice of Darth Maul. And so that was great fun too. We'll be looking very closely at every episode of The Mandalorian as they air. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Then of course every Monday night at 8:00 p.m. Central Standard Time, you can find me on Facebook Live.
Very cool. Okay. Well, Nancy wants me to remind you guys. We got the Disney Dish, which I do with Len Tessa. We have fine tuning, which I do with Drew Taylor. By the way, we're coming up with our big 100th episode, Dan.
Wow.
And we actually got a very cool guest who has an amazing story to share about a Disney, or excuse me, a Pixar / Disney animation project that never happened. Let's see. I'm going to be recording a brand new Marvelous Disney with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who does a lot of editing the podcast at our place. Working on a brand new I Want That with Shelley Valladolid, which hopefully we'll record this weekend. Likewise, what is it? Also be doing a brand new Universal joint with Dust and Fuse, though it's getting tougher and tougher to find fun stories to tell about theme parks right now.
Yeah.
You heard about the equity layoffs and all that, right?
Yeah,
Or,
it's horrible. It's heartbreaking. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop.
yeah, it will though. I mean, again, that's the one thing you got to remember, folks. These are, the nice thing about building things out of steel and concrete is they will be there tomorrow. They work like the the lost city of DeMille. They'll be here 60 years from now. So eventually COVID will be in the rearview mirror, and whether it's a vaccine or a treatment thing or that sort of thing, and hopefully all of these talented folks can come back to work someday. But in the meantime, Dan and I will try to keep you entertained. Tell you what, if you could do us a favor, if you could head over to iTunes and not only rate and recommend looking at Lucasfilm, but also all of the cool stuff that Dan does with Coffee with Kenobi. That helps additional people find the shows and spreads the word, so to speak. By the way, if you really, really, really like what you were listening to tonight, if you could head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful. And again, Dan, I so enjoy the stuff you post on social media. Can you tell folks where they can also get in on the fun?
Absolutely. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Mr. Zehr, MRZEHR, and Coffee with Kenobi is on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and you can find us on all those places. Subscribe, like us, all that good stuff.
Cool. And let's see, Nancy wants me to remind you folks that you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media and on Facebook at Jim Hill Media News. So I guess beyond that, folks, go out and get yourself a copy of the Star Wars book. It comes very highly recommended. And, in between that, you should, get yourself, a subscription to Disney Plus because we're 2 days out, Mandalorian Season 2. Can't wait to talk about that stuff with you on the next show, Dan.
Sounds great.